Hey, this is a short section from criticism from Western Marxism and the Soviet Union by Marcel van der Linden. It is from the third chapter, which is titled "From Stalin's quote Great Leap Forwards end quote to the quote Great Patriotic War end quote 1929 to 41." There's going to be another video. I don't know it'll come out first. But one that's about Trotsky's theory of the degenerated worker state, and this section is a section about criticisms of that. It's only a couple pages, so this should be a very short video, or short recording. Okay, so criticisms of the theory of the degenerated worker state. Burnham criticized the thesis that the working class in the Soviet Union, although it was politically, quote, expropriated, end quote, remained economically the ruling class, on the grounds that the means of production were mainly nationalized. Burnham mooted as argument that a petitio principii was involved here. I don't know what that means. Quote, we asked them, bracket, i.e. the defenders of the theory, end bracket, what kind of state is the Soviet Union? They answer, it's a worker state. We ask, why is it a worker state? They answer, because there is a nationalized property. We ask, why does nationalized property make it a worker state? And they answer, because a worker state is one where there is nationalized property. This is, in form, exactly the same argument used by those who tell us that the Bible is the Word of God. We ask them, how do you know the Bible is the Word of God? They answer, because the Bible itself says it is the Word of God. We ask, but how does that prove it to be true? And they answer, because nothing that God said could be a lie. In both instances, the conclusion has been taken for granted in the premises. The argument is entirely circular and can prove nothing whatever. End quote. Burnham, 1938. The same thesis by Trotsky was criticized considering the nationalized property. The same thesis by Trotsky was also criticized considering that nationalized property was an insufficient qualifying condition for a worker state. Rizzi pointed out in this context that bourgeois states as well increasingly resorted to nationalization and planning, and that the new bureaucratic class in the Soviet Union could most certainly use the, quote, innovations of the October Revolution, end quote, for its own purposes. See Rizzi, 1939. J.R. Johnson, pseudonym of C.L.R. James, made a similar criticism, quote, Trotsky, and we who followed him, failed to distinguish between, first, means of production in the hands of the state, where the state is merely an economic form like a trust, a bank, or a cartel. Second, state ownership as a purely juridical relation, which tells us no more than that it is the duty of the state to organize production and distribute the product. And third, a worker state, i.e. a state transitional to socialism. This last is not a juridical question at all, but a question of economic conditions and social relations of production, which can be summed up in one phrase: is the working class master or not? The third category includes the other two. But neither singly nor together do the first two necessarily include the third. ... Within the state property form, the working class can be master as in 1921, or enslaved as in 1941, end quote. Together with the point of criticism just mentioned, another closely related argument was advanced. Trotsky had separated economic and political power in his theory, but that was, precisely, impossible in the case of a workers' state. In the words of Joseph Carter, quote, the proletariat is a propertyless class. The proletariat's control over the economy, its domination in society, is possible only through first winning political power. It is through its state power that the working class becomes the ruling class and develops the conditions for the abolition of all classes, the socialist society. Without political power, the working class cannot be the ruling class in any sense. End quote. Joseph Carter. The end.